Gruber, do not reveal the identity of the informant that you have referenced already.
I'm handing you back the folder that you had given us earlier. We just glance through there and note how we've marked the various contents of the folder. The state's had an opportunity to review that at this point. Judge, we'd ask that the entire folder be admitted at this point, and then I'm going to ask her to go through and describe, just in a general way, what each of the documents is.
State on the objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
Admitted without objection.
Ms. Gruber, could you start then with the beginning, the first document in the folder there? What is that?
This is a letter from an informant who was his cellmate initially, and left a letter on his bunk for him because he got out and wanted to thank him. I'll just read the very last sentence. The whole letter was incredibly appreciative, but it says, "Just wanted to thank you for the insightful and stimulating religious, personal, and cultural views and camaraderie." But it explains the time that Tony spent. He's one of the ones that Tony went through the Bible and told him about the Bible stories and explained what the Lord has to say about how we should live and to encourage him.
Very well. And what's the next item that's in there?
This is another letter from someone he's shared a cell with for quite a long period of time, and was extremely disturbed and would cry day and night. A much older man.
And you knew about all of this because you discussed it with
we
Tony?
talk very regularly, and he would share what was in his life, and I'd share what was in mine, and what anything that wasn't case related. So he's unconsolable. You know, I tell him what the Lord has to say, and I show him, and he just won't believe. He just completely inconsolable, and it's the same thing day after day, and it went on a very long period of time. But Tony did walk him through the Bible, tried to tell him God's promises of salvation and provision in all things. And I will read the last statement of his letter because it's very lengthy. It just says, "Thank you, Mark. Your reward in heaven is even greater due to you helping me." And it mentions his crying so often and how long Tony patiently listened and tried to always encourage him. And he was very faithful to do that and not get frustrated with him, and how much he appreciated it.
Hold on just a second. I want to make it clear. The folder itself at this point has been marked as defendant's SA for sentencing hearing A. And that's a composite exhibit, and the first two documents that you read are defendant's SA1 and defendant's SA2. So what's the next one that you noticed?
Well, the first one is labeled defendant SA4.
Oh, I'm sorry, you had them in a different order there?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So apparently when I was labeling it, so the first one that you read was SA4?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
And the second one that you read was what?
SA3.
3, okay. What's the next one that you have there?
The next one is another letter from this very same inmate, and it is labeled SA2. And he specifically says that he's now reading Christian books himself, a lot, 4 to 5 a week, lots of Christian books, a whole lot of them. He thanked Tony for his help with the legal research and helping him with his case, and he said, "You're absolutely right," and it did work out like you said. He said, "I would not wish this journey on anyone. However, even though I don't want to go through anything like this again, I would not give anything for what all I have learned through this process. I'm now convinced that God, our Father God, is truly working all things out for my good. Romans 8:26.
Okay, what's the next one you have on?
The next one is not a letter, but it is our conversations about a disabled man. There were many times, and I have lost track of the number of times that they would put an inmate having trouble with lots of other people, or starting fights, or being beat up because maybe they were mentally ill, and they would oftentimes put them in Tony's cell because they knew there would be no problem whatsoever every single time, and that was always the case. And this particular man was a really bad one. His name was Stacy. He was mentally disabled. Sounded pretty bad. He was a 50-year-old man. He was very scared of everyone. He didn't trust anybody, but he came to trust Tony and Tony alone. He never showered, or he would pour his food and his drink on his blanket before he would eat it. And Tony was able to win his trust and to convince him that it would be good for him to shower, and taught him hygiene. And he was very afraid of other people, but Tony was able to help him acclimate and begin trusting people a little bit. These were very basic, fundamental things. He did share the word with this man to try to encourage him as well. I'm not real sure how much he understood, but what he did understand was that Tony was a protector, and he would keep him safe from other people. Tony's not a fighter, but he can diffuse a situation just by being there and trying to help explain things and draw the tension off the conflict onto himself. And I've never known in my entire life for anyone not to like Tony. He's just one of these people that is very likable, not looking out for himself, and so I think that helps tremendously.
So is that did he wrote a letter then?
No, these are just some notes from our conversations that I jotted down.
I see.
That I shared.
So those are just notes that you took based
Yes.
on the discussions that you had with Tony during
Right,
all
about
of
some
the
of the things that Tony had done with some of his cellmates. And,
Okay. All right, what's the next document that you have there?
This is not marked separately, so those are together. That's the last of the letters that I had. Some of the things that Tony did with his time while he was there was pretty much biblical study and legal study. He made use of that, and we would often talk about these things, but he had a lot of time on his hands. So he went through the Bible from beginning to end, and he wrote out the genealogy of Christ from Mary and Joseph. Just for his information, he keeps this in his Bible, and it's quite a few pages long. That's SA 6.
Do you know if he was actually attending any sort of formal classes while he was there?
I don't believe he attended any formal classes, but the Gideons would come generally weekly, and he always looked forward to hearing from the Gideons and interacting with them.
Okay. And all of this material revolves around Christian study and study of the Bible and so forth. Do you have a sense as to whether or not Tony's religious beliefs are sincere?
Absolutely, he lives it very firmly.
Now, the other things you talked about the fact that I think you said that he was reading various things, including the Bible, and you talk about the sort of homework that he was doing regarding the genealogy from the Bible. What else is in there that you've got?
Well, as he was doing his Bible reading, he went through the Bible and wrote down all the prophecies of the Bible and which ones had already been fulfilled, and all of the prophets, all of the names of God in the Bible with the scripture references. He's a pretty thorough studier. And I know that he's taken advantage of all the classes that were on the previous system that they have on tablets in the jail. I think he may have completed every single course that there was. They've switched over to a different system now, and he's done quite a few of those, aiming for all of them.
So they have some kind of a online course system that inmates can participate in if they want to?
Yes.
Okay. And he would tell you about having participated in those various things?
Yes.
Okay. And did he read at all, as far as you know?
Lots, all the time. He probably read more than anything else while he was there.
How did he get books?
I would send him books. His other aunt would send him books, and some friends of mine from church wanted to also help support him, and they would send him Christian books as well, lots of theological materials.
And there's a picture of a bookshelf there, is there not?
Yes, these are just some of the books. On his
What is
bookshelf.
that marked?
This is SA9.
Okay. And what is that a picture of?
These are just some of the books that he's read that I sent to him during the time that he was there.
How did you get them, and why? And were they sent back to you, or what happened?
Well, he can only have so many in his property, so when they tell him to send his books home, his aunt would come and pick them up, and then I would get them and put them on his bookshelf in my home.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else in the packet there that you want to talk about?
Only a few pictures. You'd asked me about how close our relationship was and how long I knew him, so I just have picture as a baby, picture as a toddler. They trick-or-treated at our house every year as children because it was safer. They lived on a highway.
Who's pictured in that picture?
This is Tony and his sister Candace.
Okay. All right. And those photographs are just offered because it supports what you were saying about you're having a close relationship growing up with him.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. Any other items in that packet?
Only the last one is a teenager picture at my home.
Okay.
That's it.
Very good. Now, during the time that you knew Tony, did he always work?
Yes, he was working before he was legally able to work. My mother had a business, and she had gotten permission, as long as it's a family business, he can work before he's 16. So he would work to raise a little money in the summer times and weekends to have a little bit of money. And that helped him to get other jobs when he was 16. And he moved on to make some more money working other jobs.
And after that initial job, do you know what other jobs he may have had?
I know his first job, he was Blockbuster Video. He did that for a little bit. I don't remember what the next opportunity was that he had. He progressed pretty quickly. The last job that he had where he was arrested was working at Home & Joe's, where he had been, I would say, probably 10 years, maybe a little bit longer. It's been there a long time.
Okay. Now that's basically all of the specific questions I have. Is there anything that I haven't asked that you would like to tell the judge about that you think he should take into account in deciding what sort of sentence to impose in this case?
I'd love to tell him everything I know, but I think it's important to realize Tony was the only steady income in his household and the Crocker household, never without a job. He was the sole income that paid for his children's clothes and food and games and Christmas toys. And there were many, many nights in their very, very old, broken down vehicle on the side of the road where his family would go get them and take the children home and their family, and Tony would be laying on the ground at night repairing their vehicle again and again and again. And I know when his vehicle was being worked on for so long, he would spend the money on their vehicle to have them have transportation before he would spend it on his own. He's an incredibly kind person and caring person, and he gets very involved. He's been involved in mission work from a very, very young age, and he's looking forward to doing that again.
Well, let me stop you then and ask you, if in fact the judge saw fit to allow him to be released sometime in the near future, would he have a place to stay with you?
Absolutely. His room is ready today.
And would you and your family members be supportive of him and helping him to adjust back to society?
Absolutely. Everyone in this courtroom is here to support helping him and would offer him a home.
And you're referring to a number of people sitting out in the courtroom
Yes.
now. And not all of those people are going to be testifying, but there are people who showed up in support of Tom, right?
That's correct.
All right. Nothing further, Judge.
Thank you. Mr. Breeden?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Gruber, when you began, you said that you were Mark's aunt,
Yes.
and you have known him all his life,
Yes.
and had continuous contact with him pretty much this entire time, right?
There were periods where there was less contact. I mean, when he was a young child and a teenager, he wasn't calling me on the phone.
Let's talk about leading up to his arrest, right? 2010 to 2019. Did you have lots of contact with him during that period?
Yes, very regular.
Okay. And you talked a little bit about his upbringing with his parents and mentioned that his parents had gotten divorced. But to your knowledge, you didn't see really any issues at the home, right? Like they weren't fighting and hitting each other, stabbing each other, screaming, yelling, things like that.
Correct.
Now, I want to focus on this case, and starting when Elwyn Crocker Sr. came into the picture, okay? And you mentioned that the children idolized Mr. Wright, this defendant. And you said things like that this defendant could diffuse any situation, right?
I didn't say the word any, but yes, he often does diffuse situations when his presence is there.
And that one of these inmates and others looked at him as a protector and someone who would keep him safe. You were talking about Mr. Stacy?
This was, yes, in reference to an inmate, yes, Mr. Stacy.
Okay. Now, when you talk about the children idolizing him, you were asked if you were aware that this defendant was charged with physical acts of abuse against Elwyn Crocker Jr., correct?
Yes.
And you said that, to your knowledge, Elwyn Crocker Jr., we'll call him JR because that's what the family called him,
Yes.
JR was misbehaving, and Elwyn Crocker Sr., his hand was hurt, couldn't discipline him, so they asked this defendant to discipline the child.
Yes.
And you testified that all this defendant did was spank him.
I don't know, I wasn't there. That was just what I heard happen.
Right. Are you aware that it was much more than a spanking?
No.
Are you aware that this defendant was charged with striking JR in the face?
I do recall Tony telling me that he was charged, or an officer had brought him in, and I believe all charges were dropped on that, from what I understand.
And he continued to remain around the children, right?
Well, it was his house. He lived there, but the children didn't live in his house until a few months, I would say possibly 6 months before he was arrested.
I
They had
don't.
a home of their own.
When we talk about the children, I'm going to show you a photograph. And, Your Honor, I'd ask the court This is not a graphic photograph. There will be some. I'd ask that any images displayed not be recorded by the media.
I agree with that. So media, any images displayed, don't record those. Thank you.
I'm showing you a photograph of J.R. and Mary Crocker. Are you familiar with those children?
Yes,
Okay, that's them, correct?
yes.
During the period of time, we'll talk about 2010 to this defendant's arrest, how often did you see Mary?
2010 to this time?
Yes.
Not very often, only whenever they would happen to be coming to Tony's house because I was coming to town. And that wasn't always a possibility for them to stop by whenever I would be traveling through.
You're aware they weren't just coming to this defendant's house, they were living there.
Only for about 6 months' time before his arrest, yes. They had a home of their own. I have the address where they lived.
You're saying it's only 6 months.
Yes,
Okay. Maybe longer than that, though, if you don't have the record, right?
correct.
Okay. Now, during that period where the children were living there with this defendant, you said you were having how much contact with him?
Pretty regularly. We used to talk every night, but I certainly didn't make a note of when the Crocker moved into his house. But during that time, he didn't have a vehicle and was living with his cousin, and his cousin was transporting him back and forth to work. So I could not talk with him, and his cousin talked with him. So we were not talking as often every single day on our ride home from work. Maybe a couple times a week.
Okay. And you said, to your knowledge, the time that you're having a couple times a week contact with this defendant, to your knowledge, everything was good with the kids.
Yes.
And that this defendant was what you called the cool uncle.
That's what his niece and nephew would have called him.
You think that's what J.R. and Mary Crocker would have called him, the cool uncle?
Yes.
Do you think J.R. would have called this defendant the cruel uncle? A cool uncle? Cruel might be correct. The cool uncle, when this defendant is alleged to have strung J.R. up in the garage with 2 ropes, with his arms out, as they said, crucifying him like Christ.
I've never heard of that, and I can't imagine anything in his character being consistent with that. I've never heard anything like that.
Are you aware, during the interviews with police, multiple people reported that?
Objection.
I'm aware of that.
I'd ask for a legal objection.
Judge, I'm objecting because it isn't true. There was one person that I know of that said something along those lines, and that was Candace, in one interview. And it was one time, supposedly.
Next question.
Thank you. Are you aware that was reported to police?
No.
Are you aware that it was reported to police that in addition to J.R. being strung up in a garage, he was abused in the home as well?
I had heard that his father was very abusive. That's about all I know.
Did you hear that his hands were placed on tables and hit with objects?
No.
Objection. There's no evidence that he had anything to do with that or knew about it.
Overruled.
Are you aware that vice grips were placed on J.R.'s genitals?
No.
Same objection.
Overruled.
Are you aware that since you said this defendant could diffuse any situation and was a protector, if he ever attempted to stop any of those things from happening to J.R.?
I don't know about any of the things that you just mentioned, but I know many times he had to go to the Crocker home. That if you situations between him abusing his sister, try to talk him down and stop that, but I was never aware of any harm to the children before all of this.
And you said that this defendant was, I think you said, very level-headed.
Yes.
And so from your understanding and your relationship of all the years of knowing him, you believe that he is level-headed, right?
Yes.
That he is calm and collected,
Yes.
rational,
Yes.
and because he can diffuse situations, you agree that he is somebody who can appreciate what is going on in the situation and how to fix it.
Yeah.
And he's never had any issues, as far as you know, since you talked about this, with understanding right from wrong because of all the Bible teachings and all of the other things that he does, right?
Correct.
He's never discussed with you or displayed, like, because he's level-headed, like he doesn't have, like, post-traumatic stress disorder or anything like that, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Now, when you were having all of this contact over this period of time with this defendant, and you said everything was good with the kids, he never reported to you that anything was going on in that home.
No.
Are you aware that Mary Crocker was being forced to stay in a small dog crate in the line of sight of his bedroom and his bed?
Judge, again, I will object, and I'll flesh out the objection a little at the end when the statement's done. I'll explain the reason for it.
That was my question, Your Honor, so
Overruled.
thank you. Are you aware that the cool uncle, laying in his bed, could see Mary being kept and housed in a small dog kennel?
Objection, we don't know that, Judge.
Overruled.
No. As a matter of fact, his sister told me after the fact, after she was sentenced, that she kept Mary in her room for an entire month.
That's strange, because have you seen the text messages in all of the phones?
No.
Okay. So are you aware that there are text messages between the people in the house where this defendant is telling them that he wants Mary to shut up?
Objection, Judge. The text message was by his mother in which she claimed that Tony had made some comment about shutting her up. I don't mind them bringing that out. Obviously, you've heard the text messages, but to characterize it that way is wrong.
Overruled.
Are you aware there were text messages amongst the defendants, where this defendant was telling them that he wanted Mary to shut up?
I heard that probably in court once before.
And when you say that you were told that Mary was kept away from him, have you seen the photographs from his home that the police took?
Yes, I have seen some.
I'll show you one. And do you see that item behind the stool?
Yes.
That dog kennel? Is it in a bedroom?
No, it's not.
At what point in time did this defendant tell you that Mary was being kept in that kennel over that period of time that you were having contact with him every day? Or every, I should say, 2 or 3 times a week, as you said.
He's never said that. But I also said he was rarely home, didn't have a vehicle, he was staying with his cousin a long way away from his home so that he could get back and forth to work. So if he wasn't there, he certainly couldn't have seen it.
Right, and you said that you kept his phone to go through his phone to use for his defense, right?
Yes.
And are you aware that somebody's phone, when you use it, shows where you are?
No.
You weren't aware that somebody's phone, like when you access the internet or make a phone call, hits a cell tower and that shows where you are?
Yeah, I'm aware that that.
Objection to that.
I'd ask for the legal objection so I can respond.
She's asking for an expert opinion or an opinion about whether or not that is an accurate method of placing a phone in a particular spot. In fact, if that's going to be an issue, we have an expert who will be addressing it.
Now, the state's response would be a layperson can testify to their knowledge of how a cell phone works.
Overruled.
Are you aware that Mark's cell phone and his cell phone records put him using his phone multiple days, almost every day, when Mary was kept in that kennel at that home, that he was in the home using his phone?
Objection to the mischaracterization, Judge. If he wants to go through and talk about a particular day and claim that it was there at that particular time, fine, we'll do that. But to categorize this and expand on what is actually in evidence is wrong.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead.
Are you aware that his phone puts him there on days where Mary was kept in that crate? Not just once, not just twice, but multiple days.
No, I'm not.
And when you said you went through his phone and talking about this, are you aware there's allegations in this case that a ginger root was placed in Mary Crocker's anus?
The lawyer I hired initially did tell me that.
Do you know who suggested that the ginger root be placed in Mary's anus?
I heard in one of the court sessions that I was at that Tony had made a comment joking about it, and someone else reported that they heard that comment. It sounded like to me when I heard it, he was joking with someone else, and someone else maybe acted on it.
Can you explain to me what is funny about and what a joke could be about placing a ginger root in a child's anus?
It wouldn't be funny to me.
But it would be funny to him. When you went through his phone, did you see all of the incest searches he was making for incest porn?
I don't know how to find that. I looked through text messages.
Are you aware that at the time where he was suggesting placing a ginger root in Mary's anus, his niece's anus, that he was also searching incest porn?
No, I have no way to know that.
Speaking of that, you talked about these inmates that had written letters for him, and one of them was Lynn Jerrio. Correct? There were 2 letters from Lynn Jerrio? I also know Lynn Jerrio, because I put him in prison. Are you aware that Lynn Jerrio went to prison for child molestation?
Objection. So did most of the people that they were using as informants in this case.
Overruled.
Are you aware that the person he chooses to have contact with in the jail, that writes letters on his behalf, that he works with, that he talks to every day, is a convicted child molester?
No.
But these inmates and these other people, as you said, saw him as a protector and someone who would keep them safe.
I'm just telling you what he did, and I even have a disabled person who called me on my phone when he got out and said that Tony would look out for him, Tony would keep other people from beating him up. He had been beaten up, and one time I was on a video visit with Tony, and I see him looking in the other direction, and I said, do you have to go? Is something wrong? He says, I'm just making sure someone doesn't get hurt. And he explained to me later on, it was a disabled person who kept getting beat up, and he would just insert himself to try to keep the man from getting hurt.
You know, at this point, the state is intending to show 2 photographs that will be of a graphic nature. They are photographs of Mary Crocker. I'm letting everybody know in the courtroom.
Very good.
And as we bring these up and we talk about this, and we saw where the dog crate was, are you aware that Mary Crocker was kept in that crate so often that she could no longer stand?
I heard that in one of the court sessions, but I also know that dog crate was moved all over that house. The last time I saw it when I was in that house, it was at the far end in their den behind double doors.
And are you aware that Mary Crocker was kept in that crate so long and couldn't stand that she was duct taped to a plastic pool ladder to force her to stand?
No.
When you say that these individuals were living in the defendant's home, at what point in time did he report to you that Mary Crocker looked like this?
Never. He was at work during the day and oftentimes not home till after 1 a.m. in the morning coming from his aunt's house. So I mean, he never did.
You aware that Mary Crocker didn't look like this just 8 to 5. She looked like this 24 hours a day. Right? Her appearance doesn't change after 5 or 6 o'clock at night, does it?
No, but I wouldn't imagine at 1 a.m. you'd be hunting all the people in your house to check them out. They would be asleep.
At what point in time did this defendant, who you see as a protector, do anything to protect Mary Crocker from this?
There's nothing I know in my life that if he had any aware, he wouldn't.
If you're saying nothing you do in your life, if he had been aware, he wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
The night that this was reported, what you said was that this defendant told you he overheard a conversation, and he told you, he said, James could be dead like Mary. James could be dead like Mary. Did he explain to you how Mary had died?
He didn't know before he heard
No.
the conversation.
He said James could be dead like Mary.
He said EJ said that and he overheard it. That's why he called the police.
And at no point in time, every single day where you're having conversations with him, every single week, I should say, when you're having conversations with him, this cool uncle, this protector who is free to talk to child molesters in the jail and protect them, at any point in time did he tell you how this little girl went from this to this in his home?
No.
At any day when he called you, did he say, you need to call the police? I need to call the police. I need to do something about this.
No, because he didn't hear about it until the night he reported it.
That's weird, because did you know the night that Mary was buried in the backyard of his house, that he went to dinner with Elwyn, Crocker, and everybody?
No, and how do you have known that?
And that he made note that Mary wasn't there, and they talked about it.
No, but she was 14, and if she chose to stay home, she was certainly old enough to stay home alone.
when we talk about the children going through this in the home, are you aware that this defendant, when we look at these injuries to Mary, when we look at her back, are you aware that this defendant beat Mary with speaker wire?
No.
In fact, are you aware that his DNA was found on that speaker wire?
No, if it's a speaker wire and someone else used it, I imagine it would be.
But not somebody else used it. You're aware he pled guilty to these crimes, correct?
No.
You're not aware he pled guilty
No.
to second-degree murder of Mary Crocker?
No, it's not able to be here.
So you're not aware, when you say there's no way he could have done these things, that he pled guilty to the second-degree murder of Mary Crocker. Admitted that he did it.
No, it's not here to know that.
Okay. Are you aware that he pled guilty to cruelty to children in the first degree for depriving Mary of food and sustenance?
I think I heard the judge say that before we started what the charges were.
Are you aware that he pled guilty to cruelty to children for confining Mary Crocker in that dog kennel that we saw?
I believe that's what the judge said before we started.
And when you say that he didn't know anything about the deaths of these children, both J.R. and Mary Crocker, are you aware that he pled guilty to knowingly concealing the deaths of those children from law enforcement?
I believe that's what the judge said before we started.
Are you aware that he pled guilty to this?
Yes.
Knowing that he pled guilty to it and did these things, does that change your opinion at all?
Judge, objection. The state is pointing to the picture and asked if he pled guilty to this, and that is a total mischaracterization of his guilty plea.
Overruled.
Knowing that he has admitted to the murder of Mary Crocker, to confining Mary Crocker in a dog crate, to withholding food from her, and then concealing her death and her brother's death, does this change your opinion of him at all?
No, it does not. I know what I know, and I don't know what I do not know. I do not know that he is the person who did this or was even aware.
Nothing further.
Mr. Sincox, follow up.
As far as you know, did Tony ever plead guilty to actually hitting her with a speaker wire?
No.
As far as you know, did Tony ever plead guilty to having tortured JR in the garage while he was spread eagled?
No.
He's never had any kind of trial on any of those, has he?
No.
And he certainly didn't enter a plea of guilty to those things, did he?
No. He also had a personal policy that when the Crockers came to stay with him, that they disciplined their children after that first incident. That is not his job. They're their children. You take care of the kids while you're here. This is a temporary home until you can find a place.
And when he did, in fact, have to go to court over hitting JR, by the way, you were aware that the allegation there was that he hit him in the face, right?
Yes.
Okay. And when you referred to spanking, you meant like he disciplined him at the request of EJ, right?
Yes, that was just what I was told.
Yeah. And after he went to court on that, were you aware that he had an order entered that he was supposed to completely stay away from JR?
Yes,
And-
because there was a long period of time where they could not come to the house at all.
And as far as you know, did he follow that order?
Absolutely, and the whole family was very cognizant, Candace especially, not to ever bring the children over to protect Tony from that order.
Nothing further.
Mr. Reed?
that the children were not to be brought over to protect him.
Well, that's what the law said. He wasn't to be with them. You can't bring children into a home where you have the law not to be around them.
What home is that?
I have no idea from this picture.
Okay, do you remember seeing the photograph that had the dog crate in it?
Yeah,
What home was that?
that was Tony's home.
Do you see Mary in the home?
I can't tell if this is James or Mary. It looks more like James to me.
You think that one was like James?
Yes.
And if we talk about all these things again, to protect him, who was protecting her? Nothing further.
Mr. Sincox?
The order, with respect to
Staying away from people was an order specifically talking about JR, right?
I believe that is true. I don't really remember, but I do believe it was just JR.
It wasn't that he was supposed to stay away from Mary.
I really don't remember. I do think it was just JR.
Okay.
No. Mr. Reed, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. River, you can step down. Please your right hand. You swear or affirm your testimony is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do, sir.
Thank you. Have a seat. State your name and spell it, please.
My name is Robert Groover. Groover spelled G-R-O-O, V as in Victor, E-R.
Thank you.
And are you related to Joanne Groover?
Yes, I am her husband.
And the testimony that she gave about where you live and how long you lived there and so forth, would your testimony be the same as what she gave?
Yes, sir.
You were here and present when she was giving that testimony, right? Now, I asked that you testify specifically because I think Joanne mentioned that you had been involved with Tony regarding some religious education that you have been conducting. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Based on my life and what I know of God and the Bible, men so oftentimes do not do what they should do, or they fail to connect with other men, just as most of the time, as we all pretty much know, women connect very easily. And one of the things I have learned from a pastor many years ago is called discipling. And that's when you get with a few men and you decide, okay, determine how we're going to live life together. Men go through situations, and I don't want to be sexist here, but women just can't understand. And the best person to talk to as a man is another man about those situations, the things that you go through, the things that, responsibilities that you carry, especially during the time that I've grown up. I know things are different here in 2025 than they were when I was younger. But during that time, I've learned that I need a man in my life that I'm responsible to, that can hold me accountable to situations and things, and I believe other men have the same need. And based off of Matthew chapter 28 of the Bible, it says we are to go out to make disciples. That word also translated can be learner, but you can't learn if no one's teaching you. So that's one of the things, not that I'm a teacher per se, but I'm learning from that other man or the few men, and they're learning from me. Because we've all lived different lives. So that's what I've done for probably 20 plus years, again, since that pastor exemplified that for me, because he did that with me and other men.
Have you had actually held some positions of trust or authority within your church?
Yes, sir. I've been ordained deacon. I've also delivered messages, sermons, if you want to call them that, several occasions. I've also I was the youth director at a church for a period of time, Sunday school teacher, again, adults and youth, chairman of deacons, things of that sort.
So how frequently do you actually have these classes or lessons or whatever you want to call them with Tony?
We try to get together by phone, of course, once a week. We've been doing this most of this year, if I remember correctly. And this actually came about because, and again, Joanne and he are much closer than he and I are. But when the Gideons weren't able to stop coming, Joanne felt like he needed someone to reach out to. And Joanne asked if I would do that. So I said, sure. Since I've done it with other men, it's a little more difficult over the phone, long distance kind of thing. But what we do is that we take a book, whether he's aware of or I'm aware of, that we think is appropriate, and we read through a chapter or maybe two, and how short they may be, and then we get together about once a week via phone again and discuss that, what I took from it, what he took from it, thoughts we had about it, maybe areas in our life that this touched on or that touched on, or something to that effect.
Is it evident to you that he is making an effort to do the reading and learning and being able to discuss it?
Yes, sir. I know the many things that have been said, but from what I know of Tony, Mark Anthony Wright, there's been several times where we've been having conversations about something, and Tony, out of the blue, says, yeah, if you look in Isaiah 54, verse 23, it talks about that. Or if you look in John, or 1 John, or whatever it may be, he is quick to find it. Or even other books similar to this. We're currently doing a book, a study, is actually a college textbook, Systematic Theology by Grudem. I believe it's Wayne Grudem. And he has read, that's the only book I've looked at. I've never even read the entire book. Tony's read it from cover to cover at least once, if not more than that. But there are other systematic theology books, and we've had our conversations the few times we've had this book we just started, and he's referenced other systematic theologies the other authors have written. So yeah, he's definitely well versed in scripture and theological issues, I believe.
How long does your sessions usually last when you have them?
It varies. Usually it's at least 2 phone calls, and unfortunately we're limited to 15-minute phone calls. Sometimes we go 45 minutes to an hour. He'll call back, and we'll keep on going, especially if it's something that we think we need to let the other one know or talk about. We both have tried to, as we read the chapter, take notes, whether it's questions at the back of the chapter or as we're reading, annotate something that stood out to us, and then we try and send that. He's able to, with a video option there in the jail, to take a picture of his notes. He sends those to Joanne, and then she gives them to me, and vice versa. I make my notes, she takes a picture, sends it to Tony, and he's able to read those.
Okay. Hold on for just a second. Having sat here and listened and having had these interactions with Tony, particularly the interactions that you've just been describing over the years, is there anything that I haven't mentioned that you think that the court ought to know in trying to reach a fair sentence in this case?
What I know of Tony, I know that the prosecution has delivered much evidence that they have accumulated from various sources. And I know they have painted a picture that fits their narrative. And that I have learned much about how courts work and our legal system. It's been disappointing and very depressing. But one of the things I have learned through all of this is that I don't believe any of it, okay, at first. But Tony has not succumbed to anger, resentment, or any of that toward any of the prosecution, their testimonies, the witnesses, anyone else for that matter, that I'm aware of. If it had been me, it would have been a different story, I'm sure. But he has sat here and listened, had his character slandered. And I don't know if it's true or not, because I wasn't in the home, don't know. But what I do know is that if you ask me, I think he's innocent enough that if I could, I'd take his place.
And if in fact he were to be released, would you and your wife provide a place for him to live?
Happily.
Would you have any qualms at all about him being around any children in that area?
Not at all.
Why do you say that, given the allegations that the state has come up with?
Again, I'm only able to spend 30, 45 minutes a week with Tony on the phone. But I've also, as an uncle, was around him growing up throughout the years to some degree. Not a lot. And as a guy, again, I'm more distant than my wife is. That's just my personality. But what I've seen of Tony has impressed me immensely. One of the things he shared with me, had no reason to lie, no reason to make this up, is that he told me that there was a situation where he was at work in his former job before he was arrested. And he made a mistake. From what I understand, he printed shirts, printed clothes, put signs or pictures, wherever on them. He made a mistake, and it was a very costly mistake to the company. Now he, I think, probably could have lied, misrepresented, or whatever. But what Tony told me he did was that he went to his boss, the company's owner, I'm assuming, and said, I did this, and it's my mistake. I messed up. Tony told me the owner, which I'm very grateful for, asked him, did you learn a lesson? He said, yes. And the owner said, don't do it again. And that was it. There was no docking of pay, there was no reprimand or anything else I'm aware of. And from a man to take responsibility like that, and what to some people may seem as a small thing, but what I've learned is, at least in my opinion, most of the time, if you're, for lack of a better term, if you're correct, if you're honest in a small thing, you'll be correct and honest in the larger things. Because your character doesn't really change. Now, I worked in the military, had a top secret security clearance for over 20 years. And that put some sort of trust into me and the folks I work with. My whole office, we all had the same clearance. And we were entitled to certain things because of that. But with entitlement, you also have great responsibility. And I think Tony handles the responsibility with the entitlement that he has, or had, very well.
And you recognize, I take it, that since he has pled guilty to various charges in this case, that he does recognize some responsibility in this case. Is that true?
From what I understand, and I hope I don't misspeak here, of course, what you have asked, and what I have seen of our justice system, I think this is the best option for him of the options that were offered to him, of what he could have chosen. Based on your advice and your co-counsel's advice to him. If he did something wrong, I think he would take responsibility for it, yes. But as I have seen, I mean, look at the courtroom. Where does the prosecution sit next to the jury? Who goes first? The prosecution. Who goes last? The prosecution. We say as a country we have a a legal system that is fair and balanced, well, not fair, balanced. Our Lady Justice supposedly wears a blindfold with scales in her hands. From what I have seen, that is not the case. Those scales are not balanced against guilty or not guilty. They're tipped to say you're not guilty. I apologize. To say that you imply that you are guilty. And because of the way our system is at this point in time, oftentimes what I have seen and heard, people take plea deals.
Hold on just a second, please.
Nothing for it.
State.
Good morning, Mr. Gruber.
Good morning, sir.
Were you in the courtroom for your wife's testimony with the pictures and all that?
Yes, sir.
I want to get a little bit of clarity here. Do you believe Mr. Wright is guilty, or do you believe he's not?
Because I have not been able to speak with him one-on-one without anyone listening. I have listened. I've been in court several times as testimony has been given and read. I have not seen any of the evidence other than what I saw here today. But no, sir, I do not believe he's guilty.
So your opinion today is based on that supposition that he's an innocent man?
I guess if you could sum up in your words, yes, sir, based on what I know, I would say that, yes.
Okay. That story about his work and him making a mistake, is that solely coming from him, or have you confirmed that in any way?
Coming from him only.
Okay. And if he came to live with you, would he be exposed to children at your house?
Not in my home, because we have no kids. We have no children in our home. We have neighbors across the street, 2 young girls that love my wife to death. For the longest time, because as a guy, I don't usually interact a lot with children. Instead of Mr. Gruber or Mr. Robert, I was Mr. Joanne, because she's referred to as Miss Joanne. So, I mean, but one of the little girls, one of the young girls, she comes over, if we're raking up pine straw and leaves in the yard, she'll come over and help. But yeah, I would have no problem with Tony being right in there.
You were speaking about faith earlier. Do you believe in evil?
Yes, sir, I do.
And in your opinion, is there anything more evil than the murder of a child?
No, sir, because that's the same as the murder of an innocent person.
I have just a moment, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Any follow-up?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Gruber, you can step down.